Hi there, and welcome to this to Rethinking the Human Factor podcast with me, your host, Bruce Hallas. Great to have you here with us on the show today. Now, for all of those who are new to the show, what is the show about? The show is quite simply all about raising awareness, influencing behaviour, and fostering an organisational culture where information security and data protection are truly valued. So where did the idea for the show come from? Well, basically, it's a spin out of 7.5 years of my own personal research into why people do what they do when I've asked them not to do. That's right. It was a really simple way of looking at it, actually. And as part of that research, I've took a significant amount of time to step back and to really put aside the assumptions and things that I was personally doing as a security professional, often asked to look at education and awareness, and to really start back at the basics, back at the fundamental, and to get that right in the first place. And funnily enough, in the process of doing that, it exposed me to a huge range of disciplines, which suddenly I became very aware could have a significant impact upon my efforts as somebody who was responsible for education awareness, somebody who'd even trained as a marketeer many years ago, to bring around changes in awareness, behaviour and culture. And that's what the show's all about. It's all about bringing practitioners and academics from within and from outside of the security and data protection industry onto the show to share with you, the listeners, their insights, their experiences, the research that they have done and the findings from that research to help you make better informed decisions about how you might go around tackling the challenge of rethinking the human factor. So today we've got a great guest on the show. Now, this guest is somebody that I have over the last maybe year and a half and been really reaching out to try and get on the show. I think for me, it's a sort of a personal mission that I want to get people on the show who don't necessarily come from the UK, who don't come from North America, whose mother tongue is not English, because I think it's really important. I mean, a lot of the projects I get involved in are for organizations with operations all around the world. And one of the consistent challenges is the cultural bias that exists within any team and among anybody. I mean, I'm culturally biased. I know it. I've come to realize that. And as a part of that, I've come to realize that actually it's really important that we get input to this Rethinking the Human Factor platform from people whose mother tongue isn't English and who have grown up in a country which isn't necessarily, Northern European, UK, North America. And so it's great to have this guy on the show today because not only does he come from outside of the UK and North America, but also he's done some amazing work. And when I sort of got to know his thinking, I was really taken back because he's really grasped the bull by the horns when it comes to rethinking the human factor. And it's made for such an interesting conversation and I guess an interesting sort of talking relationship outside of the show as well. And so I knew he would have some really interesting insights to bring on the show. So without any further ado, let's get on with that interview. Hi, Eric. Thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you for having me. I'm so pleased to join you today. I'm very excited to participate to the show.
It's great to have you on the show, and it's really important. I mean, one of the things that's really important to us here on the show, we often talk about culture, but what's really important is getting different views from different people from around the world. And you're based over in France, yeah?
Yes, I'm based in Paris.
But your history is not just. I'll let you explain a little bit about your path. But you come from France, from other countries as well, which I think is always interesting. How it can potentially build people along their life journey, and then it's like yes, and you have maybe different cultural aspects on things. So anyway, what I'm going to ask you to do is do you want to just briefly explain to us what it is you do and what's the journey that you've been on?
Yes, I studied economics at university and graduated in econometrics, information system management, and more recently in business intelligence. The work I do actually is to create the condition for cybersecurity transformation at Thales Group. It's a company with 80,000 employees and operations in 68 countries.
So, and this is the Thales Group, as in the Thales Group that most of us in the security profession would recognise as having a massive stand at InfoSec. But also, they're a security solutions provider. They're helping organisations out there come up with solutions to their security needs, yes?
Yes. They have different areas. This is a complex organization because they are acting in different fields, and sometimes, as I joined very recently, I'm still a bit lost. But this is very interesting because the complexity for the security awareness is very important for me, and it brings me new challenges as I'm organizing and coordinating the security awareness activities across the group. It includes security communication, awareness and education. So I work in collaboration with the physical security because we need to build the consistent message with them, with cybersecurity experts, of course, IT experts, and with the communication mainly, and many other support or business functions when needed. In addition to this, I also lead several projects made to improve the adoption of cybersecurity measures and change behavior. I didn't want to only act on the security awareness as a communicator or as an advertiser for the security teams.
Right, okay. For the current role, I mean, you've been sort of looking at the whole area of education awareness and change, transformation. It goes beyond just the role at Thales, isn't it? It does go back into previous roles as well.
Yes, I want to go through the 20 years of my experience in IT and security domain. But I entered into the security during the last 10 years, and I discovered security awareness as a practitioner 5 years ago.
Okay.
Since that, I really love it, despite the fact that it is very time-consuming. But when I started with my small change management experience from project, I tried to innovate, and in the security awareness, I was not very satisfied with what I had experienced as an employee or the content I had received. So I thought it could be a good challenge for me to do better than my previous colleagues. And so I learned from scratch. I didn't follow any course at university for this, doing my own research on the web and through the experience. I did some mistakes, but and I say we, because I had the chance to build a team from 0 to 6 people that I managed in my previous job in security awareness. We have been successful with some campaigns. We for sure changed the perceptions of employees toward the security team and also the mindset from the security people. For me, this is very important, that we consider not only the change in the employees and the people who are used to be called the end user, but also the security team. Now, the more I dive into security awareness, the more I think it is gathering such a wide range of discipline and domains. I came to the field because I wanted to help change the way it was made in the company I was working in before. I observed the industry. I think it is changing. And the reason I'm here today with you is I want to help change also the practice in this field of security awareness. I think we have some progress to do. And I would be happy to share these ideas with you.
Okay. Yeah, and that's exactly why we wanted to get you on the show as well. So I think an interesting point that you've learned from the mistakes as well. So it seems to me you've made a lot of progress without any formal education, but really from your own personal research program and from a perspective of observing. And you've managed to build a team of 6, which is a big team. I think one of the big problems that a lot of people that are listening will have is that they've possibly not got a team. They're possibly doing this as a part-time job. It's another thing that they have to do. What is it that you've been able to do within your organization that has enabled you to build a team of 6 people? Because often, often I speak to listeners and they say, look, big problem for us is I haven't got enough time to do this. So what is it? How have you successfully built a business case, that's enabled you to get 6 people on board?
A bit of luck. Probably also I took some risk and I assumed it, and my probably helped me in this. But I was lucky because it was big. A project after a crisis in the company, and they wanted to improve the security awareness. A project has been initiated, but it was not delivering anything. So they came to see me, and as a project manager, they told me, would you like to take over the project? And I said, yes. So I started with a small budget. It was in a project mode, and little by little, by providing content, by delivering the things that I promised to do, we succeeded to convince people that they could first transform this activity, which were dedicated to project mode, into a run mode. So it was settled not forever, but as a regular basis in the company.
Business as usual type of thing.
So we transferred the project mode budget into the budget for the year, and it helped me to start with 1-2 people, external people, and little by little. So it took 5 years. We succeeded to build the team. Because we were able to achieve what we promised, we built a plan. We set the objectives of what we wanted to deliver.
Yeah,
and finally, the people trusted us more and more. We had very good experience with a series of video that transformed the company.
Yeah,
or at least the perception of the people on the security.
Yep.
It was not easy at the beginning because some of my colleagues in security considered that we were spending too much money on these videos. We were addressing it through the humor. So security is a very serious topic. We should not use humor to address the security topic, and I'm a bit stubborn, so I went against these advices, and we did the video.
Yep.
It has been a tremendous success, not only for the team I've been working with, but also for the employees, because they appreciated it. They saw the security in a different manner. The security benefited from it because people had a different vision on them. They understood that they could laugh on their role, or there was something that they could adapt also their communication and the way they were addressing the security topic. Some other functions in the company came to us and asked if they could reuse the video to illustrate their not security awareness, but their export control awareness, their intellectual property awareness, etc. Yeah. And finally, we decided to publish the video on YouTube to let other companies benefit from this.
Yeah,
and today it's available on YouTube. So if you click, you search Airbus security, you will find on YouTube different video that we have produced, and that brought us a real change in the company.
That's brilliant. I know that's a really, really good success story. And I think that's one of the things, going back to the initial question, how do you get people on board to allow the team to develop to 6 people over a period of time? Admittedly, is that success. Be clear, be very clear with people what your objective is, and then having a plan for doing that, sort of doing it in small steps, but showing each one of those small steps actually delivers results, and it gets people, the trust builds up with you and the team. And then when you ask for additional resources, those additional resources are more likely to be made available. It's quite an interesting, from a behavioral psychology perspective, there's some interesting stuff that's going on there. But then what you did was great. I mean, the first thing is, standing your ground on those people who said, no, serious, security's serious. So everything needs to be serious. It's like, fine, but it's not what we think as security professionals.
To look at the things through the vision of the people we are addressing the communication to, or the security awareness content.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel that as we see some communications that is made for communication only, we build content which are made for security specialists or experts. And finally, they're full of jargon, they're full of technical wording. And we need to put ourselves in the place of the other and understand what they are looking for, what are their constraints, they're looking for solutions, what are their interests, and it works a lot more. And for these campaign, I just thought about what would be the values and the interests from employees, and we just had discovered it was the product. They were very proud of the product, so we used this into each of the video, and we made sure to represent all the different activities in the campaign.
Yeah.
Make sure that it will fit to all the employees, not only the top managers or the managers in the corporate office, but also the blue collars.
Yeah.
It was very important to reflect these different activities as well. So, and sometimes this is what we are missing in the content we deliver or we see that is sold to us. It is the content should reflect the people we have to give the awareness to.
Yep. And just an issue I'll pick up on the comment you made earlier was how actually by standing your ground and taking a different approach, and we're going to talk about those things a little bit later on, but standing your ground and taking a different approach, then and producing results, then other areas of the business start to look at you going, hey, hold on a minute, their challenges are the same as our challenges, So export control, actually, there's a whole range of policies, process and procedures and standards by which an export control goes on within any organization. And you know what? They've got the same challenge. They've got to raise awareness of those. They've got to influence people's behavior, and they've got to embed them into the organizational culture. And when we're a success, like you are, actually suddenly there's a whole value thing that goes on to the rest of the organization. And we've seen it where we've applied like a lot of behavioral insights that we do and the cultural insights that we do. And you sit down with the right stakeholders and they all have these aha moments and they go, well, that's exactly the same problem that we've got in this area. And you're like, okay. And they say, well, how is it you're doing that? And you go, here we go. And they're like, can we take that? And I said, of course you can take it. It's the business property. So I imagine it's enhanced the security brand within the organization. It's not just the brand from here are our security controls, we really want to work with you. It's also security giving something back to the rest of the organization with the same challenges around awareness, behavior, and culture, isn't it?
For sure, we need this security branding developed for the security, and it helps to convince people to get visibility, because we know that there's lots of different functions that want to communicate on their achievements, need to exist and to be seen in the company. Yeah. So it's an internal communication competition we have to face, and the corporate communication is here probably to organize this competition, or to give some more priority to some activities than others. But it benefits to the security for sure. After, we have to be careful that security awareness is not only considered for the communication to advertise security activities. We should go beyond this because it requires multi-skilled people, and we need, as you said, to collaborate with other functions. And this is something that I really like about the podcast, and I'm looking for. We have very talented people who are doing security awareness, but as Sense Security Awareness report, it's around 80% of these professionals who are coming from IT or information security.
Yep.
And what we need in the security awareness is communication, advertising, teaching, education, developing security culture. And I'm not a specialist in these area, and I think since Leonardo da Vinci, probably no one is able to master all the topics we're talking about. And not precisely on security awareness, but we need specialists, and we need to build on their experience and knowledge. This is what I like from the podcast, but I'm looking for practitioners in the field of, for instance, cognitive base, change behavior, behavioral economics. I did it in my study.
Yeah.
And when I did it, there were assumptions that the consumer is rational.
Yeah.
Finally, 20 years later, we discover the consumer is not rational, and all the theory that the economy was based on is probably not adapted. We need a human factor specialist, psychologist, neuroscience, marketing. I said probably ergonomist and many others. Maybe I can ask for design process building or people working on the design of products.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because finally, what we offer to our employees is a security design, and we need help to build this in the security awareness community, I think.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to agree with you on that one as well. I mean, it became very, very clear when I kicked off my research program. I did a risk assessment. You know, as a security professional, everything I've done is based upon risk for 20 odd years.
Yes.
But in a slightly different way to how most people talk about risk assessment in the context of the human factor at the moment. There is this one way that people talk about risk, and the way that I took it is it says, yeah, it acknowledges that, but it's a different way. And I think it's from that different way of doing it. And I did my own risk assessment. Then I'm suddenly like, bang. And suddenly I was like, oh, wow, okay. So it's identified all these things here. And I looked and I go, well, that requires me to understand physically what does it mean to be human? How we built as humans just on the physical level. Then it went into the conscious, the subconscious, in neurology, cognitive science. Suddenly I was just bang, and all these disciplines were coming out, and I was like, oh God, I've never studied any. Well, not anyway, but I've never studied. There was a lot of stuff I just never studied. I studied marketing many years ago, and I've applied marketing in previous roles, etc. So there's an element of there was that always, but I had this aha moment. I was like, wow, look at all these disciplines, and then it was a case of we could be tapping into people, because all these disciplines, there are people out there that specialize in it. They do it day in, day out, academic or practitioner. And you're like, wow, actually what we ought to be doing to move the industry forward is to actually engage with these people to bring their ideas in. And I guess that's one thing we try to do with the podcast. But it's great to see that people like you who are developing your teams are sort of taking that thinking along the lines of, I need to find people who represent these different disciplines that we just do not find within information security. And maybe what we actually need to be doing in security is actually acknowledging that and building up our skills base around that and an experience, so that even CISOs are in a better position to understand that really at the end of the day, it's all about behavior. And I made a prediction at the Information Security Forum 5 years ago. I was asked to predict what the future CISO will look like in 2030. And I don't mean physically what they'll look like, but I mean
what skills will they bring to the table? And the thing that I said was, I think that they'll have a background in behavioral psychology, behavioral science, or they'll have some sort of training in it. And that maybe the deputy CISO, there'll be two deputies. There'll be the deputy CISO from maybe a technical perspective. There'll be and then on the other hand, there'll be one from the human perspective. You combine the human and the technical piece with the CISO at the head of it. And actually what you've got there is a leadership team on the issue of cyber, physical security, whatever, who are incorporating all the different elements. We talk about people, process, technology, don't we? But I don't see a lot of focus on the people bit. I see more focus on technology and process.
Yeah, I would say that we talk a lot of human factor, but we don't act too much on this so far. If you look at different organizations, we see every year the threat reports. They claim all these data breach strongly linked to human factor vulnerability, but we don't get the same budget as our colleagues are collecting for the technology. And so we are still in the position where we think that the technology will solve everything.
Yeah.
Probably what we see through the different platforms is that we will put the human factor issue into a solution that will be a technology solution again. I'm not against the technology. I love it, and I'm probably happy to be first in this field through the IT in my first experience, and it helps a lot of day-to-day activities. But we shouldn't forget what we want to achieve at the end, and we should not be driven only by the technology. Ask ourselves the right question: what are the objectives we want to achieve, and with what we can do it. And sometimes I see people who just run for the solutions. The solutions is a technology, and they don't even know exactly for what they're buying the product, but they are happy. They get statistics on the phishing click rates.
Yeah.
But at the end, do they really change what they wanted to change or not? I'm not sure.
It's really interesting. I remember relatively recently, I saw something on LinkedIn where somebody was asking, what's the best solution they're looking for a computer-based training platform type of solution.
Yes, it's a regular question.
It's a regular question. I did the interesting. I almost went back to the person and say, and then I stopped myself. Okay. But I was like, what do you mean by best? If you haven't defined your business need, well, surely best is what is the business need. So he's like, you define your business need, okay, and then you go and look for the solution. Or are you looking at solutions and seeing what they offer you and then taking the what you think is the best from them? And it's a little bit, it's almost like cart and horse, where you're actually putting the cart in front of the horse instead of the horse being in front of the car. And then this is a thing that interests me, whether or not in our industry at the moment, are we as users of solutions, as buyers, whose personal reputation is on the line about the choice, the recommendation, and the choices we're making for the different type of solutions, maybe technical solutions specifically to the challenges of awareness and behavior. Are we driving the industry by defining very clearly what it is we want? Or are we going to the industry, looking at the Gartners of this world and looking at the quadrants and seeing what the industry offers us? What do you think?
I think we are probably much more driven by the vendors than we are driving the vendors and the industry. I think the industry must provide us with solutions to evaluate and distribute information for targeted audience on knowledge, perceptions, behaviors. But let's be realistic. We know these people. We want to provide the information won't spend more than 5 minutes per month. And even if they do that, it represents a cost that is huge. So we need to be more efficient on this. And the solutions we see today are either coming from the phishing exercise, which is probably the first natural reaction as we want to prove that we are efficient. So people are looking for figures. And if there's one topic that you can measure is the phishing, whether the people click rate or not. After putting all your employees under the supervision of phishing exercise, does it make them more comfortable? And are they more efficient to detect phishing? I'm not sure. Apparently, some research have proven that it creates stress and it breaks the trust between the security teams and the employees. But we played phishing exercise. I did some of them for security awareness purpose. After, I think these tools are good to let the employees experience the phishing exercise, but this is an endless story. The phishing techniques evolve constantly. They find new tricks, new ways, especially at the moment. And we will run after the threats actors, and the vendors will help us to spend all our budget to buy the platform, to dream about something that will help our employees to change their behaviors. But what we see in the phishing is that we cannot compare the initial situation to a new situation as it evolved, as the scenarios are always different in the mail we are using. So, and sometimes when the curve is increasing, nobody is suddenly understanding. But I'm sure the threat actors understand, because as soon as you put some context in your email or your phishing, it creates a big success for the click rate.
Yeah, and I think it sort of highlights the challenge, really. It's the constant catching up. You have to learn about what the latest techniques are, and then you have to incorporate them in whatever the platforms are. But I mean, and that's a challenge, that whether that's phishing or anything else, that challenge is there. I mean, with the interesting, I guess, things for me with my research is that suddenly, when I started to understand how behaviors are formed and influenced at a cognitive level, you're just like, that explains why the phishing campaigns were designed like this. And then you're like, and that explains why this particular behavior here for this particular instant would have happened on an unconscious level. And even when you start to understand, and that's the reason why people haven't been able to get the budget signed off. When you start to understand all the ways that behaviors are formed or influenced, you then start to see that, one, there are different ways we can be designing how we do education and awareness to increase the likelihood that we're going to end up with what I call the positive security outcome. But two, you also recognize that if I know this stuff through research, and if other people are, and that research is based upon seeing other people's activities around influencing behavior, it doesn't take a mastermind to be able to go, well, if the cyber criminals also are doing their research into how behaviors are formed and influenced, that's how they're potentially designing their attacks.
Yes.
They're designing with the human in mind, which is like the key thing I'm always talking about, is designing with the human mind. And for me, it goes back to the teams, the team you're building, the points you make about the variety of different disciplines, is that for us to stand a chance of keeping up with that curve as attackers take different approaches to designing attacks based upon a better understanding of the human. We've got to have that ourselves. We don't have that, then we lag behind so much more upon how these people are designing these attacks. Because it's only by understanding that we can better design what it is that we're putting in place.
Some talks I've seen a few years ago in one of the SANS security awareness conference, and people were recommending that the security awareness work with the CERT, the Computer Emergency Response Team, or their SOC. And I think it's very important as well. It is mandatory that security awareness exchange and work with their set when they have one and the chance to collaborate with them. because not only on the knowledge of the threat practices, but also to ensure the communication we send to our population are sent at the right time. We can detect some potential attacks or campaigns of phishing. The search should get a report from the end users on these phishing attacks, and they can then block it on the email infrastructure with the help of the different IT infrastructure experts.
Yeah.
And it is, for me, a collective intelligence that we have to build around these topics. We have spent too much time blaming the end user, considering them either stupid or sometimes I've heard that we have to consider the employees as a human operating system, and they have to be patched so they won't reproduce the vulnerability or the error they have done.
Yeah.
They are not human operating system. It's more complex than this, as you have explained. We are influenced by lots of different factors. The culture of the company, the culture of the security, national culture, our own experience, and all these makes us a very complex object. But this is what is interesting.
Yes.
And
interesting, doesn't it?
Yes, and we should benefit from this. And for me, the people who can report and who can identify a phishing email are very valuable, because they bring intelligence, and we are used to talk about artificial intelligence, but we have all these resources available in the company. We have 80,000 people, and they are able to identify phishing emails. Maybe not all of them, but they can help to block them and to fight against all the threat actors. And this is something that we need to recreate, is the collaboration between all the different parts in the company, not just separating these activities between the expert of IT, the expert of cyber, the expert of whatever. And this is the combination of all our strengths that will make us more efficient. And I know it's difficult. Sometimes we have not the time, because we are all running after time, and business is focused on delivery, on the cost reduction. We have to take the time to think and to reflect of new solutions altogether. Sometimes, as Chris Fleming was saying in his podcast a few weeks ago, it's a marginal gain. There's not much to change or to make it evolve to get a real gain from the situation, and everything is under our eyes and in our hand to make this happen, I feel.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull you back. You used the word culture, and I think that's something I wanted just to explore with you. If you think of your role, you're responsible for education awareness in a global organization. It's a French group. Okay, you're French. The role of culture in terms of its impact upon the effectiveness of initiatives when trying to influence, raising the awareness and behavior. How important is an understanding of the organizational culture, your target audience's culture, and the fact that you have a culture? Because I think one thing I learned very early in my research is that I never really, I think I have to a certain degree, because I've lived in so many different countries. I was sort of quite aware of culture. I was very clear that my mum's culture, South Mediterranean, was very different from my dad's culture, which was Northern England. So really, really very, very different. But how important is that cultural question in the role that you do in terms of producing results?
It's crucial, I would say. As you said, you had a different culture, and probably it helps you to understand the situation better than probably someone who have only one culture and stayed in this culture. Everybody can evolve. But I've been living in Africa when I was young. I came back in France, and then I studied in England and came back in France. I feel probably more European sometimes than French. I've worked in a company with 4 core nationalities. And for me, it was evident that we had to take into account all the different culture. Make sure that when we talk to each other, we are not miscommunicating, or we are understanding each other in the right way. I've experienced some security awareness for a while. I was traveling in different countries in Europe. We had exchange with people in China, some in US as well. And I feel there's sometimes slight differences, but they are important for the people who will receive the content and the information we want to share. We are often obliged to translate the information. In some companies, it's not translated. It's English for everybody, as it's the easiest, because probably for budget restriction or whatever. But I feel the native language helps the people also to appropriate the information they get and to adopt it. And so I've experienced several security awareness where we traveled in Europe, and I was making sure each time I had a native language speaker to ensure the people understood what we were talking about. I was sometimes here, and it was funny. I'm not speaking German, but I've been in security awareness for several times in Germany. There were people talking during 3 hours in German, and at the end I was nearly able to understand few words, and it was a good experience for me, even if I did not understand too much. But the people were very happy with the experience. I also discovered a new way to introduce a topic, to present it. As a French, I would have done it very differently, and probably it would have not been perceived the same way.
Yeah.
I think it's crucial that at least before to start the campaign, to deliver the information, people think of the audience. It's probably a major thing. Think before what will be your audience and who will be the people who will receive the information. They probably have a different culture. When we talk about security culture, for instance, there is the cybersecurity culture. And these are people who are at ease with the techniques, and there are some geeks around this community. And in the same area, you also have the security culture, the physical security culture, people who are probably from different backgrounds. You have people from product security, so they have also another culture. So we understand that finally there's within a same wording, security, we could have different culture as well. And on that, we add the country where it is delivered, and the experience of the people who will receive the information is also important. I was reading recently that the security culture have more influence on the people than the organizational culture. So it doesn't worth to spend too much time to transform the organization culture, and it's more important to focus on the security culture. I don't know the value of this report or this study, but for me, it's a rule. We have to address the topic with an holistic view, as we want to avoid to compartment the activities and the people. It's the same with the culture. I think it's a matter of communication with all the different level of management and activities in the company. For sure, the people in finance will not act the same way as the people in production on the ground and the blue collar, the workforce. It's something that we have to take into account if we don't want to fail. When we were talking about the computer based training and the vendors, what I often see is a single product which is declined in different languages, but sometimes the languages is not at the quality we are expecting. It is made with some animation and not also at the level the people are used to consume today. They all have a different account in different movie distributors, and they are used to consume it at home and or during commuting.
Quality. You're talking about quality content, aren't you? I mean, people are used to a user experience around content nowadays, which is so good.
Yes.
That actually then they come into work and you're trying to do the same thing. You want them to engage with your content. So it's all about that user experience, and it's so poor. Not necessarily because it's just been badly designed, though. That could be the case. It could be you just don't have the budget to be able to even think about the user experience. So you're up against it. And I think that's something one of our previous sponsors has raised as well, was just like when he was education and awareness manager, he was working for a company that made films. It's like, okay, the standard was already so high. I could produce something and it'd be with next to no budget and it'd be really poor and nobody would engage with it. In which case, if nobody engages with it, if the effectiveness of whatever you do is significantly at risk, why spend any money on it at all?
It's just because you are compliant. You did the effort, and you can prove that you did the effort to comply with the rules. Sometimes I would also say that we have the influence of the benchmark. People are, of course, exchanging between each other. And that's fine in the security awareness. But if my colleagues takes one solutions on the market, I think it works. He tells me that it works for his company, his environment, and it's probably something that will influence me on buying this product than another. But does it suit my issue, my problems, my population, and my company context? I'm not sure. I also think that in terms of quality, sometimes we need to put the effort. When we did the video, some people told me it's very expensive and you're spending all the budget of awareness. But at the end, if you compare the amount I spent for the video and the number of people who have seen it, it's nothing. Yeah. It's nothing. It worth the money we spent in it. We get some numbers of views were higher than the CEO, which were used to get the higher score, and suddenly the security was getting more views than the CEO, and everybody was surprised and had to stay humble and modest. But
CEO come to speak to you about that and say, well, okay, like you produce really good content, you're going to get more views than mine. What can you do about my video next year?
No, not even. But the communication department, when we get the prize for the video, they were very proud of this, and they claimed they had won the prize. And at the beginning, they were saying to me, "You should not do it." So it's like this. Sometimes people share the success, and that's fine for me until the security awareness is benefiting from it. We are happy.
You are happy. Yeah. You raised the interesting point there, which is that, in relation to my question about if you don't take into consideration the cultural impact upon your awareness efforts, even if you're just focusing upon the communication piece of it, then what is it you're doing? And your point is, well, then it's really more of a case that you're being seen to comply. So so you're like, okay, well, I'm just doing this for the sake of being seen to actually have done something and to comply and to tick the box, which is something I think the majority of our listeners would widely say, look, that's not what we want to do. And a lot of organizations will say, that's not what do. But actually, the reality is that's what a lot of organizations are doing. They're just doing enough to cross the line in terms of compliance. And then you mentioned the point of the benchmark, which I think is really important, because often it's easier to compare yourself against another organ. What does everybody else in my industry sector do? Okay, what is the products that are out there? And you can go to the likes of, the analysts, and they'll tell you, here's the quadrant. And so, you want to be up here, here, or here. And it all makes it easier. But the one thing it sort of takes away from, and I think which you allude to, is taking the time out to define what it is you clearly want. What are your business requirements? How you think you can achieve that? And then going out to the market and seeing what is out there that's going to be able to do that. And I think that's an alternative to just benchmarking yourself against other people, or even, I have my personal views on maturity standards on weak. I think there's some great stuff in it, but there's some other stuff which isn't so great as well. But yeah, so pick up on the point on compliance and benchmarking. I'm going to bring us back to something you mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast, and it's going to be, I guess, our last summing up point. And it's an opportunity. I know that it's something that you've expressed to me when we've had conversations in the past. Is education and awareness really just about communication, awareness campaigns, making people aware? Or do you think that the outcome of behavior and culture is actually something that goes well and truly above that?
It should go above that. For me, it's security awareness and beyond. And in the same times, after 5 years in security awareness, it makes me realize that changing the culture is very ambitious for a company. I believe changing the security culture of employees for a big organization with multinationalities and location is possible, but it requires time. If you start a campaign or a program on this, don't sell to your top managers that you will change the culture next year. Probably it won't be possible. You will start to influence the perception of the people, and it's a first gain, but it won't change the culture so quickly, I would say. It will help you to get strong sponsors, every level of the organization, and this is necessary in different activities. Talk to all the different functions where you can collaborate with.
Yeah.
And I would call these people the force multiplier, or what we are used to call the champions.
Yes. Yeah.
So we know that we have to change the mindset, and especially the security mindset. For me, it is mandatory. We won't be able to change our employees' behavior, and probably we are targeting something that is not what we should do. I will explain. We think that we should change the behavior of our employees, and the employees are about 80,000 in the companies I work in. Mm-hmm. But I'm not thinking of changing the mindset and the way we implement the security controls and the solutions we offer to these people with the less people who are working in security team. So probably we should start by the security team, and then we have to think of how to adapt the solution, how to redesign the way we are producing the solutions, the way we deliver it, the message we provide to them. For instance, we illustrate the security awareness with lots of anxiety and fears. The vocabulary we are using is very aggressive, and it doesn't attract too much the people, or maybe some of the people who are much attracted by wars and these environments. But maybe we think that we should transform and change the end user. I don't like the end user word, but the employees and the population we are doing the security awareness for, but it goes beyond just communication. It goes with transformation of all self. We should adapt our security team. We should think of the security as a different implementation. And I like the idea you talked about with the CISO. What will be the CISO in few years? I hope that it will be someone with some education in security awareness, but a security awareness which is not only delivering communication. Someone who will be able to recognize the function of security awareness leader as someone who can help the CISO to transform his own organization or own organization, and then with these forces, these workforces, they will be able to transform the company and to work with the people, the audience they target, to work differently. We have opposed so much the security. We were delivering regulation. We were pushing regulation and cascading the regulation to end user only sometimes. Now we see some change, but the work is still ongoing.
Okay.
And the transformation of our own teams should happen. If not, we won't succeed with security awareness. We will still communicate as it has been done during many years.
Yeah.
Probably we will improve our communication. We make it more attractive, etc. But maybe we want the people to change the behavior. In fact, they are humans, as we understand more and more, and they are reacting not as we are expecting. So let's understand how they are acting.
Yeah.
Let's take this into account in the solutions we provide them, either for the security awareness vendors. They have to help us to understand how it works, to measure it, and don't expect us to provide tools in which our employees will spend half of the week. We know they have very few time. We are competing with other functions, so we need to be attractive in the quality of what we deliver to them. We need to be assertive. I mean, we need to be precise, and we need to provide them the information they need, and not providing the generic content that we expect that they will find important, because the security topic is not important for everybody. We have probably a bias here that we consider this topic important for everybody, but in fact it's important for security teams.
Yeah.
But not for all the population around us in the company. They have also their jobs and their activities to run, and we should take this into account and make it attractive for sure. But for me, we should transform our team first, and then think of the transformation of the solutions of the activities we deliver and the solutions we provide to them.
Okay. All right. So I think we're going to finish there because it's about the 1 hour mark. Eric, it's been great having you on the show. I'm sure our listeners will have thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope that you've enjoyed being on the show as well.
Yeah, I loved it, and I love to listen the podcast every Tuesday now. It's such a good moment, and it's very inspiring for me. So please bring more people to the community. I wish that we could share more and collaborate, and we will progress. And I'm sure that it makes a huge difference in the few years.
Thank you very much. I think the team here will be really happy to hear that you get value from it. Even the fact we ramped it up to once a week, which is such incredibly hard work
Yes.
to do that. People are actually they're tuning in every week and they're really getting something from it. And I think for me personally, because I know the journey that you've been on and where you're at, to know that we're still you still find us of value as a source of influence around how you're looking at the challenges that you got within the role that you have is just really great for us. It's very much what we're about. We're trying to be a valuable resource to help the industry mature in how it looks at these things, and maybe take on that mantle of us driving what's out there rather than being driven by what's out there. I think that's really important for us going forward. So look, great to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're really busy. I'm really looking forward to getting this published.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be with you in the show, and looking forward to listen to the other podcasts in the coming weeks. And I'm sure that all colleagues, security awareness leaders, will understand the need that we have to define what we want and to take the lead for this. It's not, for me, the technology industry that should define it for us. It's our job to tell what we need. And now let's take the opportunity to do it all together.
So that was Eric. And Eric's worked for some really awesome companies, very large companies with footprints all across the world. And one of the things that, he relates to there is the cultural challenges of trying to engage with people, even in between France and Germany, for example. And that's something that came from my research. I am totally taken back by how different, even in relatively small ways sometimes, the cultures are, even the national cultures. And the differences between a legal professional and an accountant, or a marketeer and a legal professional. It is vast. But I think one thing that Eric really has taken away from his experience is that these things might seem to be relatively small and tinkering around the edges, but for him in his personal capacity as somebody responsible for education and awareness and bring around those changes in behaviour and culture, it actually has a really significant impact. And I think it's really important to take away from the show today. So how can you best go about sort of getting access to those insights? And then about how can you actually apply them? Well, the simple way to do that is to get in contact with me. That's right. Just drop me an email at bruce.hallis@re-thinkingthehumanfactor.com and ask me, Bruce, how can I get access to those insights? And I'll probably come back to you with one or three things that we can do together. Either come and join me on one of my workshops or one of the courses that I deliver, or I can actually provide mentoring and coaching, which I do for a number of education and awareness and CISOs. And that can be done on a 6-monthly, yearly, or even a 3-yearly program of work. Final thing that I can do to help you is to actually conduct a benchmarking exercise against the SABAC framework, which I've developed for helping sort of define a strategy and then go about implementing that as well. So yeah, really simple thing to do. Just drop me an email at bruce.hallis@re-thinkingthehumanfactor.com. Okay, how do you stay in contact with the show? Simple way to do that is subscribe to the podcast. So whichever platform you're accessing the podcast from, it could be from the Marmalade Box, for example, website. It could be from Apple Podcasts. It could be from Spotify. So you can actually subscribe via those platforms. The other way to stay in contact with what we're up to, Twitter. So we're on Twitter. And also you can find us on LinkedIn at the Rethinking the Human Factor group there. And who's on the show next? Well, the next show is all about me. That's right. I was challenged by the team to actually be interviewed myself, which is a new experience because I'm not used to being on this side of the microphone asking the questions rather than having the questions asked of me. So I'm going to be interviewed and I'm going to be asked to explain myself, a bit about where the Rethinking the Human Factor program of work has come from, what's motivated me to do it, some of the things that I found out from that. And so I guess my vision for how things could potentially change within the industry. And one of the big key stories for me is about those of us who are responsible for awareness, behavior, and culture, developing enough insights to start driving the industry in terms of the direction that we want it to go. And so, yeah, I'm going to be on the show. It's going to be very interesting. So I hope you can join me on the show in a week's time. In the meantime, please take care of yourself, stay safe. And if you have got time on your hands, then maybe I could just pick up a couple of the earlier series and pick a couple of random episodes and listen into them and start to maybe join the dots between what you're hearing now and what we've been talking about for the last 2 years. Okay, many thanks for joining us, and I look forward to sharing insights with you again next week. Cheerio.